Questions ready? Let's have it go. Good afternoon. Does this work? Welcome to the Energy and Commerce Committee. I'm Jeff Carroll, the Democratic Majority Staff Director of this committee. Thank you all for joining us today. Thank you all for coming from New Jersey. This was wonderful. I've been given the honor and the privilege today to introduce a great man. Henry Waxman was the chairman of this committee in 2009 and 2010. He was the ranking member from 2011 to 2014. He's the author of Hatch-Waxman, the Affordable Care Act, the Clean Air Act, and we're very happy to have him here to hand Mr. Pallone the gavel. Mr. Waxman?
Thank you very much. Jeff was a little reluctant to give me the gavel to pass it on for fear that I would keep it. And I also want to note that my portrait is up on this side of the room, which is the majority side of the room. I know many of you have been waiting at least an hour. Well, we've been all waiting for years for this chance to come today. I may be biased, but in my opinion, the Energy and Commerce Committee is the best committee in the House of Representatives. It has broad jurisdiction. It has handled some of the most important legislation. It has some of the most distinguished members who want to serve on this committee. And to be a member on the Energy and Commerce Committee means you can influence people's lives in healthcare, public health, environment, energy policy, telecommunications policy, and protecting consumers from corporate greed. So it's a committee that can do a lot of good, and members always feel very proud of this committee. And I might say this with some bias, but I think we've had some very distinguished chairs of this committee. And without naming them all, but you can see former chairman of the committee on the wall, and some of that will probably get adjusted. My picture will be taken down as soon as Frank's is painted. But I remember when I was a young member on this committee in 1975, and the great John Dingell said to me that there we have the great, where is this fellow now? Yeah, well, that's John Dingell. Oh, the great Orrin Harris. We all know the great Orrin Harris. I said, I don't know the great Orrin Harris. Someday they'll talk about the great John Dingell and Henry Waxman, and people say, who are they? But I am so pleased to be here to hand the gavel, to be chairman of this committee, to Frank Pallone. We've been friends since, I don't know, 90s, 80s? When did you get here?
Oh, I got here in 94.
94. I thought you went further back than that.
Oh,
You're a new kid.
when I was first
Oh,
elected,
yeah.
94.
Right. And we've been friends for all that time. And he's been an outstanding leader on the task force dealing with Medicare and Medicaid for the whole Democratic caucus, where they resisted any attempt by the Republicans to make Medicare a block grant or Medicaid a block grant and Medicare a voucher program. He was the chairman of the old Health and Environment Subcommittee, or became later the Health Subcommittee, and was in that capacity one of the authors of the Affordable Care Act. He's worked across the aisle on issues like the FDA reform, the 21st Century Cures Act, the Food Safety Modernization Act, Child Health Insurance Program, reauthorization of the Toxic Substances Control Act, and he has fought to protect the coastal habitat and prevent offshore drilling in New Jersey and in California. So Frank has had a very distinguished record as a member of the committee, as the ranking member of the Health Committee, and also the ranking member of the full committee. And with those accomplishments, I can't wait to see what's going to happen now that you're going to be chairman. So it's my great honor. I have to give it up, but I can think of no one I'd rather give it to than Frank Pallone, the chairman of the Energy and Commerce Committee.
Thank you. Thank you, Henry. Thank you so much. All right. We got the... Thank you. I noticed that they actually started running the clock on the vote, so I'm going to have to be a little quicker than I planned, but maybe you'd prefer that since you've been here for a while. 12 minutes, Henry says. First of all, let me thank Henry for not only being here today, but all the support that he's given me over the years. Henry is mentioning when I was elected in '88, as many of you know, but I was first on the committee, I think in '94, and he was instrumental even then in getting me to be on the committee, which, you know, is not an easy thing to get on it, and also helpful for so many other things over the years. When I was the Health Subcommittee chair, when I ran to be the ranking member, so many things. So I want to thank Henry. And let me also tell you this. This is the best committee in the House, and it does have the broadest jurisdiction, but largely the reason for that is because of Henry Waxman and John Dingell, because there've only been, since I've been here, there've only been two chairmen. Those are the two on the Democratic side. And they worked very hard over the years to not only make sure that this was a great committee, but that we retained or even expanded our jurisdiction. So the Energy and Commerce Committee would not be what it is today without Henry and without John. So thank you also for that and for all that you've done. So let me just first of all thank all the people, mayors, freeholders, assembly people, state senators who came here from New Jersey, plus some of my colleagues from Congress. I see Donald Norcross over there. I don't know if some of the others are here, but I want to thank everybody from the state, both elected officials and people that have helped me over the years for coming down today and being here. This is truly wonderful to see so many of you. I just tell one story. And that is, when I was first elected, some of you knew that I represented the district that was represented by Jim Howard, and then eventually it became also the district that was represented by Bernie Dwyer. So some of you remember both of them. But I was originally on the Transportation Committee, because you couldn't get on Energy and Commerce as a new member. It's still true today, for the most part. And so what I would do is some of you heard this story, I would wander over here, and as you know, when you come into the Rayburn building, the first committee you see as you walk straight ahead is this one, right? I don't know if it was built that way on purpose, probably. And so I wandered into the room, and because I thought, you know, maybe I'd like to be on a different committee, and I wandered into the room, and I saw John Dingell, Henry Waxman, Ed Markey, Al Swift. There were so many people that were giants. I don't just speak in the past tense, but they were giants in the sense that they were the ones that were moving the major legislation in Washington in the House of Representatives for a long time, and the Democrats have been in the majority for, I think, over 40 years, or were eventually in the majority for over 40 years. And I looked at them in awe as these sort of giants of the House of Representatives. And if you had ever thought, I never thought I'd even get on the committee, because that wasn't easy. I certainly never thought that I would be the ranking member or the chairman of the committee. And I still, you know, in all humility, find it hard to think that I'm going to fill Henry Waxman and John Dingell's shoes. But I'm certainly going to do my best because this is a committee that is so important to the House of Representatives and to the American people. And I don't need to go through all our jurisdiction and all the things that we have jurisdiction over. But I do want to mention that we announced today that there are 3 issues that we're going to take up right away. The first hearing is going to be on climate change, which so many of you know has always been so important to me. And the second one is going to be on the Affordable Care Act. You know that in Texas, you know that the Republicans went to court, and the district court struck down the Affordable Care Act. That's now on appeal, and we are going to investigate the sabotage and the damage that the Republicans have done because we want to stabilize and make sure that the Affordable Care Act is affordable, that it's universal, and that people will get the kind of coverage that they deserve as Americans. And the third thing is, what's been happening with families separated at the border. And a lot of people don't know that that also comes under our jurisdiction because they're not being properly cared for when they're separated and their health is impacted. We've had a couple of, as you know, young children that have died. And so we will also be looking into that as well. But that just gives you an example of the types of things that this committee will be dealing with. I also want to mention that my wife Sarah is here, my daughter Rose is here. My other 2 children weren't able to be here. Frank is actually in Japan, so he can't be here. And Celeste is preparing to, she wants to be a PhD in environmental science, so she has to get her applications together. But thank you also for being here. And I also want to thank all the staff. Jeff spoke earlier. He's our committee director. Tiffany, I don't know where Tiffany is. She's around here somewhere, who's our deputy director. We now, we're going to have twice as many people as we did before because we have to do so much oversight. And that's where we're going to spend a lot of time. One of the things that Henry was the best at, he was also, before he became the chairman of the Energy and Commerce Committee, he was the chairman of the Oversight Committee. And he digged into what the administration was doing. It didn't matter if it was a Democrat or Republican. He digged in to find out what was happening because part of our obligation also is to conduct oversight and make sure that the administration is doing what they should be doing, which unfortunately is not the case very much right now with President Trump. But I just want to thank all of you again for being here today and understand that I understand the heavy burden of responsibility that we have here, but we are determined as Democrats and also on a bipartisan basis to get things done, to make a difference for the lives of all Americans. So thank you all. Thank you so much.
He's going to run to the floor. He's going to vote. If everybody wants to stay, I think there's just one vote. Is that right? And he'll come back if anybody wants to see him.